following video has got all the information you need to know going into Game Week 10. Right, I'm going to start off this video as I've done with all the ultimate guides in the past, and that's by going through the top players by position for expected points. Looking at the goalkeepers then, we've got David Raya in first place, 4.5 expected points against Sheffield United at home. Obviously, the caveat with David Raya is he made a couple of mistakes against Chelsea, so the question is he going to start against Sheffield United? My thinking is he probably will do. I think the reason that Arteta brought him in was for his ball-playing ability. He's kind of displayed or put down some of the mistakes he's made in the past. I think he's going to play against Sheffield United. However, if he makes a mistake in that game, I really do think the door is open for Ramsdale to take that spot again. But I do think Raya is going to start one more game week at least. Alisson in second, followed by Martinez, Sanchez, Vicario, Pope, Neto, Edison, Areola and Johnston. On to the defenders then. Is it any surprise to see Kieran Trippier top of the defenders list? I don't think so. He's been absolutely smashing the points recently. 6.4 expected points. Wolves away is his fixture. Quite feasibly see a clean sheet and attacking return in that one. I know Wolves haven't been too bad, but I mean, Newcastle are looking really, really good at the moment. Matty Cash in second, 6.1 expected points. Obviously, he's way and above the rest of the Villa defenders for his attacking upside. Basically been playing as a right winger so far this season. Few of the Arsenal defenders mixed in there. High clean sheet odds, obviously, against Sheffield United. We see Trent in there for a similar reason for Liverpool, or similar to what we see with Cash, really. He's got more attacking threat than the rest of the Liverpool defenders, and Liverpool probably expected to keep a clean sheet against Forest. Pau Torres, Luca Dean, Virgil van Dijk, and Zinchenko round off that list. Midfielders then, and no real surprise to see Mo Salah top the list. What is a surprise, though, is to see Draft Times putting Maddison and Son as low down the list as they have done. I think basically they're backing Crystal Palace to do quite well in that game defensively. And to be honest, Crystal Palace have looked pretty good defensively so far this season. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that's outlandish to suggest that, but I do think Spurs will score in that game. But it's suggesting that Maddison and Son are unlikely to haul, where Salah, Forest at home, plum fixture. He's in really good form. In fact, I say he's in good form. He's in good scoring form, but he's not actually been playing that well. He's still managed to score goals, so I think Forest at home is a really good opportunity to captain him, although we'll get on to who is the best captain in a future segment. Saka, Odegaard round off the top three. I think both of them have got a good chance of doing well against Sheffield United at home. Sterling, Diaby, Bowen, Douglas Luiz, who's coming out of the woodwork as a really nice option for Villa. Obviously, most of his goals coming from penalties, of course. And then Mitoma for Brighton. He starts a really lovely fixture run in Game Week 10, and I think a really good option going forwards. Onto the forwards, we've got Haaland top of the list for the forwards, although if you remember, Salah 8.9, Haaland 8 expected points, so Salah leading the way at the moment for expected points. Watkins in second place, followed by Julian Alvarez, Gabriel Jesus, Isak, Darwin, Højlund of Man United, Solanke, Nketiah, and Ferguson round off the forwards. The all-important captaincy decision then for Game Week 10, and they're not in the list for expected points, but I really do think Spurs' options with Crystal Palace away, you could still feasibly captain them. However, I think the race this week is between Haaland and Salah. Haaland obviously on 87% ownership, so I think he's going to be very heavily captained in the game for Game Week 10. However, Salah is increasing in ownership and, of course, increasing in price. This morning, before I took these, after I took these screenshots, sorry, he went up to 12.8 million, so his popularity is only going up. He's basically one expected point higher in Game Week 10 than Haaland is. So if you have Salah, it looks like he's probably the better captain for the game week. And of course, Saka's in there as well, third place, not too far off Erling Haaland. And despite, carrying a little niggling injury and perhaps not playing to his full potential, he's still got an attacking return against Chelsea. And I mean, who knows what he can do against Sheffield United at home. Watkins, really interesting if you want to go differential, I think. Luton at home, obviously a really nice fixture for Villa, and he's in great form. He's probably the outside captaincy pick. Below him, I'm not sure I'd want to trust Odegaard or Trippier with the armband. And finally, to round off the draft time stats, we've got the clean sheet odds for the game week. Now, I never like to consider teams below 30% as likely to keep a clean sheet, really. I wouldn't want to start defenders from those teams. And you can see Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool, Chelsea, Brighton, Newcastle, Man City, Bournemouth, Tottenham and West Ham all above 30% for clean sheet odds. So I wouldn't be afraid to start defenders from those teams. But if you have defenders from Burnley, Everton, Palace, Brentford, Wolves, United, Fulham, Luton, Forest and Sheffield United, I'd be less likely to start them. I don't think you should, basically. Arsenal and Aston Villa, both at greater than 50% chance, according to DraftHound, to keep a clean sheet. That means they're the two teams in the league this week, basically, that are more likely than not to keep a clean sheet. So, the likes of Cash, Gabriel, the score with those defenders. They're really likely to keep a clean sheet. I just wanted to talk through some key transfer targets for the upcoming game week, and I've got a little wildcard draft at the end as well if you missed my video about it. Gabriel, I think, is my top defender target for the game week. 4.7 million, cheapest starting Arsenal defender now. Looks to have nailed his spot again, and he last season, as we all know, had the highest expected goals amongst defenders in the Premier League last season. The two worst teams for defending set pieces in the league are Sheffield United and Burnley, and he's got them in game weeks 10 and 12 respectively, and that's of course where most of his goals come from. So over the next few game weeks, bar of course that Newcastle away fixture, but at 4.7 million, I mean, you could feasibly bench Gabriel if you wanted to for that week. But for the other four fixtures, he's a really nice option who I think will both get some clean sheets and potentially some attacking returns as well. Another Arsenal player to talk about then, and that's of course Bukayo Saka. In my opinion, he's by far and away the best Arsenal option in FPL. He's going to start every game. Even when he's carrying a niggling injury, Arteta is still sticking him there on that right wing because he's basically the only player comfortable with that position in that Arsenal squad as far as I'm concerned. And he does the work defensively as well, which you just know Arteta loves. He's still the Arsenal designated penalty taker, despite giving the last few away. He's still going to carry the ball to the penalty spot, and then it's up to him whether he fancies taking it, or at least that's how I'm reading the situation. So he does have a chance of getting some penalties. In general, as I said, he's Arsenal's best player. All the attacks kind of start with or go through him. And yeah, I just think it's a really nice option. He's got a return per start that he's made so far this season. 0.85 expected returns per 90 is really, really nice. And as I said with Gabriel, there's one fixture in the next 5 which looks quite tough. But, I mean, would you rule out Arsenal scoring against Newcastle? I don't think I would. The other 4 fixtures are fantastic. I really do think Bukayo Saka is back and a really nice option. The other thing with Saka as well, FPL have massively underpriced him at 8.5 million. I think if he was 10 million, he'd still be a decent option in the game. That's how underpriced he is, in my opinion. So it just makes sense to go with him. Now, a bit of a theme with the next 3 players. I think there's a new spot opening up in the midfield for sub 6 million players. Now, a few of these have risen in price since I made the graphic. So Pedro Neto now sits at 5.8 million, but I think you still get the point with the graphic. Under 6, ticking along really nicely. He's joint top for assists in the league this season. Wolves, their fixtures are decent, but just in general, he's really nice for team structure. If he gets injured, doesn't perform well, there are other players you can swap to, and I'm going to go through them now. So you've got Cole Palmer, now gone up to 5 million. The designated Chelsea penalty taker seems to be nailed in that Chelsea team. Pochettino really liking him. A lot of the attacking stuff that Chelsea do go through him. I just really like him as an option. I think if people are wildcarding in game week 10, he could prove to be really popular. Obviously, the Chelsea fixtures over the next 5 are tough, but I mean, you couldn't rule out him scoring a penalty in a few of those games. And with how good he looks, I mean, he could well score from open play as well. But from game week 16 onwards, the Chelsea fixtures are fantastic. So maybe getting Cole Palmer in now before he rises in price to exponential levels in game week 16 might be a good play. Another one, of course, is Anthony Gordon. 5.6 million, looks to be the first choice left winger for Newcastle now. Combination of the Harvey Barnes injury and the fact that he puts in a lot of effort defensively makes me think he's going to be nailed that left wing position for Newcastle. He's putting up some really strong numbers, got an attacking return per start he's made for Newcastle this season, and seems to just be returning consistently game after game. Arsenal at home in game week 11 is obviously a tough fixture, but the others I really do think he can score in, and to be honest, he could well get a return against Arsenal as well. So yeah, there's 3 players there under 6 million that you can go for. I don't really think you can consider one to be the best. Look at the stats that I've just showed you there and pick whoever you think is best. And finally, Game Week 10 is going to be a really popular time for players to wildcard. I've already made a video going through this draft in more detail. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description. But this is it in a summary. Areola and Turner as the 2 goalkeepers. They both rotate nicely, both dirt cheap. Cash, Udogie, Gabriel in defence. I've gone through most of those players already. Udogie, I've got him in here for 4.7 million. There's some cash in the bank if you fancy going up to Pedro Porro. Salah, who's going to be captain in Game Week 10. Maddison, Saka, Bowen. I've gone for Neto from those cheap midfielders, but I mean, as I said, you can take your pick. Haaland and Watkins up front. I don't have Heung-min Son, which some players might disagree with how well he's been playing, but I just don't see him as a captaincy option over coming game weeks, and I think Saka and Son are going to score quite similarly, and I couldn't justify spending the 1 million extra on Son over Saka, so for that reason I've gone for Saka, spent the million elsewhere, and came up with this team. It's got 0.4 million in the bank, and it's based on the team value that I've accrued across the season. I'm hoping that pretty much anyone watching this video can afford this team. However, if you can't, there's some key areas I think you can downgrade in, namely Pedro Neto. Just go for Cole Palmer instead. You could also go for a cheaper defender than Dan Burn. Likewise, Cash could be downgraded to another Villa defender. You could go for a 4.5 over Udogie as well. Lots of ways you can play it as a wildcard draft. I think this should give you a good basis though. Alright, and that's the end of the video. Definitely one of my longer ones, but hopefully that's given you all the information you need in a quick, digestible manner to get ready for Game Week 10. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave me a like rating, subscribe to the Goal to Goal channel, which should be around there, and I'll catch you for my next video.